I'm trying to be classic hardcore as a mage using only melee. To help me, I have access to various buffs like mana shield and access to professions and items. With this I have to reach the max level 60, but Blizzard has decided that this challenge shouldn't actually be possible and have put a mechanic in the game to specifically screw over casters using melee attacks monumentally. But before we get there, we need to understand what led me to figure this out. Last time, in case you need a refresher because it's been a bit, we successfully 3-manned the dead mines and secured a ton of gear, and more importantly, a weapon upgrade. I used these upgrades to tear through the next levels, putting me comfortably at level 26. That's where we left off. And from that point, we just kept blasting through 26 with relative ease thanks to us being very far ahead of the guide, thanks to the Dead Mines run and quite a bit of rested XP. I picked off the Owler with a split pull, then tried really hard to do the same thing with Fangor, but he has some weird combat pulls that chains him with mobs far away from him, forcing me to eventually give up. The days was scary, but because we can only use our resources like mana defensively, we're actually extremely durable, giving us somewhat easy escapes from most situations, especially with potions and later down the line, dummies. But already being 7 levels away from Dead Mines, it was time for us to start future-proofing and think about our next available weapons. In terms of damage, superior quality weapons sit at around a 40% DPS upgrade over common weapons of the same item level, which is insane. But access to weapons such as those is very limited, especially as we gain levels. This in turn makes finding upgrades tricky, as our humble staff of Westfall has similar DPS to a vendor weapon acquired 15 levels later. So essentially, we have to rely on finding any uncommon quality weapons we can. While they only boast around a 10 to 15% DPS upgrade over common, it's still significant and their availability is considerably higher. Still, we must go out of our way to find them. And that is precisely why we are currently running through Dustwallow, surrounded by skull-level enemies. Yeah, not bad. I feel like there's a spider around me. Oh shit. Oh, I'm sweating. Now I just gotta get past the Murlocs. This is 40 hours on the line. For what, man? For what? Why am I in combat? Evade? What? What just hit me? Bro, Barons is right there. Listen, I have an idea. Slow fall. Oh no, I'm gonna aggro it. Oh my god, I'm cold sweat everywhere. I think I'm free. I think that was stupid as shit. But there is a method to most every madness. Most. Anyways, we're trying to reach Ratchet, so we can make our way to Booty Bay. We are looking for superior weaponsmith Zarina Cromwind, seeing as she has access to not 1 but 2 usable uncommon weapons for us. Both of these staves are very good. Strength gives us flat out more damage, albeit a bit less considering our strength to attack power scaling is 1-to-1, unlike 1-to-2 for most melee. And armor is surprisingly very strong, because we wear cloth. Any extra source will lead to significant damage reduction. But these weapons are not always available, so by making this trek now, we can grab the Booty Bay flight path and simply fly from Stormwind to check it every now and then, successfully future-proofing us. Another way to future-proof ourselves is with today's sponsor, NordVPN. I have an unbelievable amount of my life centered online. My work, my hobbies, friendships, and making sure all of my information and data is safe from hackers and scammers can be exhausting. But it doesn't have to be. NordVPN's Threat Protection Pro blocks millions of scams every month by automatically scanning websites you visit and blocking harmful ones, blocking dangerous ads, and even scanning your downloads for harm, removing those before they can cause any damage to your device. It has been ranked as the best anti-malware software solution among other VPNs, as well as being the fastest VPN on the planet. This means you get all the perks of being safe online while also having the ability to just sit back and enjoy your favorite content that might not be available in your region with a single click. So there's really no reason to worry anymore, because you can feel completely safe by using code Jumpanos or just going to nordvpn.com/Jumpanos to get an exclusive NordVPN deal with 4 months extra on top. And the funny thing is, even that is risk-free because of Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Now go. Click my link in the description, you really do have nothing to lose. Now, we're getting to the meat of the issue. I want you guys and 2% gals to pay very close attention to the damage I'm dealing to this Murloc. We're looking at around a respectable 40 damage per hit average. Then, it was time for me to tackle first mate Snellig. I got my food buff, then proceeded with a simple split pull and got into the fight. Now, watch what happens. Bro, why is this guy so difficult? I did no damage. Everything glanced. Every single one. Oh? I was in combat with this man for 2.5 minutes before conceding. This was very, very weird to me. Glancing blows are a relatively complicated mechanic on paper, but it essentially boils down to you having a chance to get a glancing blow decided by your own level versus your enemy. And the damage loss from a glancing blow is decided by your weapon skill versus their defense skill. This is why, as some of you might know, weapon skill is such an important thing to have in Classic, because if you are fighting a boss, while you will always have a 40% chance to glance, seeing as it's 3 levels above you, getting just 5 weapon skill will reduce the glancing penalty from 35 to only 15%. As well as increasing your hit. But herein lies the confusion. Snellig is only 2 levels above me, and my weapon skill is maxed out. So why am I getting glancing blows on every hit? And why are some hits only dealing 5 damage, which is nowhere close to a 15% damage reduction, which should be the case with 10 skill difference? So, I decided to do some research, and boy was I not stoked at what I had found. Everything I just stated is completely true for a melee class. Apparently, non-melee classes have a completely different way of calculating glancing blows, and this is horribly bad news. While melee classes have a baseline 10% chance to get a glancing blow, increased by 10% for every level the enemy is above you, a caster class has a baseline 60% chance to glance at level 30. Why? Below 30, it's calculated as level minus 10 times 3. So at 27, we are rocking a solid 51% chance plus 10% per level difference. Still, this leaves us with the conundrum of 5 damage hits, as even if we were to glance, it would only be a 15% damage reduction at 2 levels above, right? Wrong. There is yet another difference between melee and casters, and that's how the damage loss is calculated. This is basically a lot of math, so I'll keep it real simple and brief. If we, as a mage, would hit an enemy 3 levels above us, the damage loss of a glancing blow would average out to be 77%. A 77% damage loss. Jesus Christ. And if the target is 2 levels above us, the reduction averages to 65. This is why Snellig was close to impossible. The enemy being only 2 levels above us, in total, makes each swing have an average, including crit dodge everything, of 64% less damage. That is not good. Will this challenge even be possible? Luckily, there is a singular clause in this calculation. Even if we have a base 60% chance to glance, the chance is reduced by 10% for every level above our enemy we are, and the damage reduction eventually caps as we get closer as well. If enemies are at or below, the reduction from a glancing blow will sit at a lowly 20% average, which is still horrible by regular standards, but that's only like a 12% overall DPS loss. Okay, this has been a long rant, but it's just to show the insanity of the game's deep mechanics, and even more so the insanity of me and this challenge. So, where does this leave us? Theoretically, the importance of staying ahead in levels has never been more pressing, and currently the guide is catching up to us rapidly. In general though, since it's the survival guide, it's already trying to keep us somewhat ahead, even if we stay at the intended level, but I'm not one to back down from a challenge. So while in Stormwind for some business, after reaching level 28, I grabbed DMF for a 10% damage increase, and did a quick trip to Booty Bay for a staff check, and after having no luck, it was time for revenge. After 3.5 minutes of combat, every resource used up, and 3 of our remaining 4 flash bundles used, a singular standard quest mob has been defeated. So, with this thriller of a battle completed, I could finally go back to regularly scheduled questing and beat down mobs 2 to 4 levels below me, and while killing enemies does take some time, I do still feel incredibly safe doing so. Each level we get from here increases our chance to land a glancing blow by 3%, until it caps out at 60% at level 30. So technically I'm doing less and less damage each level right now. Some quick adoration from saying later, it was time to embark on my 2 most hated quests in all of hardcore, the Charred Veil. I did promise myself after doing these quests on the Arcane Mage that I would never come back to this godforsaken place, but kill quests where 30 mobs are required and they're all low level, it's just like, I just can't turn that down. Look, the XP an hour is going fucking wild. But with Hardcore Fresh being out, leaving these servers a veritable ghost land, there were enough enemies available to successfully complete the quest without too much pain. But it still took an hour. Perhaps mostly because I managed to snatch an Onyxia buff halfway through. After reaching level 29, I decided to use the remaining duration of my buff to simply grind out some enemies. While rested, this is somewhat decent XP, but it also lets me, you guessed it, stay ahead. Well, no. Bad idea. Very bad idea. Wait, they can swim? No. Maybe it's not that bad then. So this is what it looks like to not be a melee mage, huh? And that's somewhat scary. That's 2.5k XP. Can't say no. Oof, Jesus Christ. And look at that.
Have a good one. See you around.
Sub 49 hours, level 30. Impressive. We were fortunate enough to get our hands on another Onyxia on top of having a full level of rested, making 30 to 31 very fast in terms of melee wizard standards, while also letting us tackle some harder quests with relative ease. Leaving Ashenvale though, the XP high wouldn't last, and we plummeted down to standard XP rates just in time to reach the 50 hours played mark. While Onyxia is very nice, it is definitely not something we can rely on, since hardcore is never defined by your strongest point, but your weakest. One misstep can easily lose me this 50 hours of progress, and to make sure this never happens, we have to stay on top of our most important asset, gear. This is why, when something like the Swampland Trousers presents itself, we have to acquire it through any means necessary. But now that we're 30, the permanent problem of higher leveled enemies, even if they're just one level above, will be ever present. On top of this, we have one huge weakness before hitting level 40 and getting access to Ice Barrier, and that is casters that do not use fire or frost, especially if that caster is higher level than us, rendering this quest close to impossible without the proper strategy. Unfortunately, I didn't have a proper strategy and decided to abandon this quest for now, as our moonshine was putting a time pressure on us. So I had to devise a plan. Technically, I do not need to kill any enemies, I just need to complete the 5-second cast on the card, which would be easy if we could just polymorph them, but we can't. So it was time to finally brush up on a long overdue skill, engineering. I have acquired a lot of ore in my travels, so after a quick detour to gather some linen, I quickly speedrun to 150 NG, giving us the required level for heavy dynamite, our new pair of goggles, and more importantly, got some target dummies made along the way. Already returning back to the span, it was time to put the strategy into motion. Of course, prior to the grand plan, I had to swiftly dispose of the surrounding enemies, and by swiftly I of course mean that they each take 2 full minutes to kill. Come on. Genius. And yeah, look at the damage taken from a single cast. There is 0 chance we would ever win a fight like this one.
Hi.
Holy shit. I mean, just look at that upgrade, Jesus Christ. This simple item increases our effective health pool by like 130. And as we know, our health pool is directly related to what enemies we can fight. But the fruits of our labor are apparent. Constantly staying on top of our professions, having any buffs we need readily available, and just making sure any risks we take are calculated. We are basically turning out to be an unstoppable force. Unfortunately, this force is in the shape of a snail because that is the pace we are moving at. We grabbed an onyxia along the way, upgrading our snail to a turtle, giving us somewhat formidable XP rates as we cleared our way through the final part of Duskwood. But as the buff faded, one immovable object still stood in the way. The Legend of Stalvin is a really long questline, consisting of only fetch quests, except when you reach the finale, where you have to take on Stalvin himself for a grand total of 4,100 experience. Now that is the equivalent of 10 minutes of efficient questing from a single enemy. Stalvin is no elite, but he is not a pushover, rocking about 50% more health than a normal enemy. Dual wields, plus applies a curse to you. They did this funny thing in hardcore as well by putting hard boundaries where certain named mobs cannot be kited past, to avoid pulling them into cities and mildly trivializing them. And this is a bit of a problem for us, seeing as we now have to deal with this entire health bar ourselves. So much so that I just gave up for the time being. Instead, I decided to visit Booty Bay quickly, as the prospect of getting the big stick could give me the edge I need to beat this singular man.
Need help? Farewell.
Time is money, friend.
Okay, not quite what I was looking for, but it's a win nonetheless. This staff is probably stronger than the big stick and will last ages before being replaced, as long as we can actually make it to level 34, which we are going to find out right now. Big stick or no stick. One thing to note is that as we've progressed through the levels, I've been able to pick up a few more arcane talents. One of them increasing our armor by 50% of our intellect, which turns out to be like 60 armor, but I mean, it's still something. Now remember, we are strong. Not traditionally strong, but mentally strong, flexible and agile. What Stalvin has in terms of power, we overcompensate for with guile. He is dual wielding, which makes kiting him incredibly powerful. When fights are this long as well, it's important that we don't spend all our mana first, and use some health instead as a means to get our mana regeneration into full gear for a little bit, because we can always bandage it back. Heavy dynamite is also extremely potent, letting us deal massive damage multiple times in a drawn out encounter. We like crits. Oh, he's trying to run away. Hopefully he doesn't run past this fucking reset border. That would be so tragic. Oh, please don't. Oh, please don't. No, no, no. Okay, just stand still. Probably be fine. Let's go. Oof. Okay, didn't have to use too much, actually. With the Staff of Protection safely in our bags and our lives still intact as we approach level 33 with 56 hours on the clock, We have all the necessary resources to battle the odds and persevere even over Blizzard themselves. But whether we can actually do it or not remains to be seen. When? Who knows, man. This guy's release schedule is horrible. See ya!